award-winning author and journalist Sam Quinones will offer an in-depth look at the world of substance use and abuse and its disruptive effects on the U.S. in a presentation hosted by the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences Psychiatric Research Institute. That event will be held on Wednesday, October 9th from 8 to 11:30 a.m. in the Central Arkansas Library System's Ron Robinson Theater in Little Rock. The event, sponsored by Arkansas Blue Cross and Blue Shield and the Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce, is free to the public, although pre-registration is required. I caught up with Quinones for a conversation about what to expect. You've written several books on the illegal drug trade, particularly between the U.S. and Mexico. I know you've worked in journalism and writing in the U.S. You've been in Mexico as well on that side of the equation. Kind of where did you get your passion for covering this topic as a reporter and then writing these books also?
Well, I think it really came from just being a journalist. You know, when you stumble on stories that you can see are enormous, I mean, really big, and no one is telling them. To me, that is, I mean, I've got a lot of journalistic radar that goes haywire when I find something like that. So my first book, Dreamland, on the topic, no one was telling, when I wrote it, no one was really telling a comprehensive version of how we got into the whole pain pill, prescription pain pill, OxyContin, et cetera, problem, and how that then transitioned a lot of people into addiction and from there into heroin. And when I realized that was how big the story was and that no one was really doing it, that was a motivation in and of itself. And with The Least of Us, my latest book, I realized after Dreamland came out that we were transitioning away from the story that I had written towards a situation a drug situation on the streets that no longer involved doctors and pharmaceutical companies as much, and really now is being dominated more and more by the Mexican trafficking world and their evolution away from plant-based drugs and towards synthetic drugs made only with chemicals, and the principal two being fentanyl and methamphetamine. And I could see that, again, no one was writing a comprehensive view of what got us into this and how where we were, even though, you know, fentanyl was clearly now behind most of the overdose deaths in America. And so all of that, really, it's just kind of, I became a journalist because I love telling stories, and certainly stories that no one else has told.
I hear, and you and I are going to have to keep this on a little bit of a vague level today because there is the opioid crisis, there's the methamphetamine crisis, there's the fentanyl crisis, everything transitioning from plant-based to synthetic drugs like you're talking about there.
Sure.
I hear politicians talk about fentanyl and meth and opioid abuse. I know these drug addictions are deeply affecting individuals and society, but I view you as someone who can kind of give me an unbiased and unvarnished kind of outlook on where we truly are
Yes.
in this battle, in this fight. I kind of want to throw the spin to the side and have you tell me what is accurate for me to believe about this crisis.
What's accurate to believe is that in the same way that doctors overprescribing pain pills and pharmaceutical companies pushing them to do so covered the entire country with pain pills. So you had black markets, you had huge amounts of these pills all across the country. In the same way, the Mexican trafficking world has covered the country in these two synthetic drugs, fentanyl and methamphetamine. So Maine to LA, pretty much every place in between. In some places, the methamphetamine is a bigger story. In others, fentanyl is a bigger story, but in no place, really, no region in America do you not find these two drugs. And what's more, you find them in extraordinary quantities and very, very potent. Obviously, fentanyl is just the most potent drug we've ever seen, most deadly drug we've ever seen on the streets. The methamphetamine that is being made down in Mexico now is made with such enormous potency, and is not cut, is not adulterated. So it's getting across the border and being used by people in stronger doses than methamphetamine has ever been used. And all of this is creating the problems that we are now seeing. People living on the street, unable to care for themselves, refusing treatment, refusing care because they're terrified of being away from the drugs, even though they know, and this is well known, that the longer you stay on the street, the more chance you have of dying. At the same time, the prices have collapsed. It's a remarkable achievement, I guess you might say, that the drug trafficking world in Mexico has covered the country, and certainly for methamphetamine, we have a lot of price history for methamphetamine, dropped the prices by 80, 90% to the point where it has outcompeted all those meth cooks that you may have remembered from 10 or 15 years ago, Breaking Bad and all that stuff. None of that exists anymore. It's all methamphetamine coming out of Mexico, and it's just too potent and too cheap for anybody to compete with. And it is creating, therefore, for counties and towns and neighborhoods, problems unlike we've ever seen in terms of just persistence of addiction, unwillingness of people to get out of it because they're terrified of being away from the drugs. And of course, now we're seeing last several years, stratospheric and record overdose deaths.
So let's talk about the potential approaches to getting a handle on this situation and eventually a solution. I don't think first of all, there's no one magic silver bullet that's going to solve all of this. Some people want a law enforcement their way, is my term of using this, to, we just need to crack down. And if we would do that, it would solve the problem. But you've got the addiction problem, you've got the families that are wrecked, individuals that are wrecked. You've got the mental health crisis that comes along with a lot of this. What's the, how do we develop a holistic way to deal with this situation?
I truly believe that the best way we have is to develop a community approach to addiction treatment. Yes, for a long time, we had treated addiction as if it were only a law enforcement problem. I would say lately, in some parts of the country, they treat it only as a treatment problem. I would say that neither one of these really is up to the task that these drugs represent and the quantities and the potency that we're now seeing. We cannot arrest our way out of this. We cannot treat our way out of it. So I believe this is calling for a third way that involves everybody, every aspect of a community, including, yes, arrests, especially, I would say, for small, minor amounts of drugs, because those drugs are not any minor anymore. The fentanyl and meth have changed everything. A little pill with a little bit of fentanyl in it is an invitation to several years of grinding addiction and death. And so we need to rethink jail. We need to rethink jail as a place of recovery. This is happening in parts of the country. I would say in Kentucky, other parts of the country, you see really remarkable experiments, arresting someone, putting them in jail to detox, and then into a recovery pod in jail. The blessing of that is that they cannot leave when the drugs insist that they must, because on the street, they are going to die. And then, though, it's more than just jail. It's what happens after someone gets out. Then there's a whole community continuum of care that involves driver's license retrieval, job placement, sober living, medically assisted treatment, on and on. There's a large array of services that take people from arrest through jail, could be months in jail, of course, drug court to then expunge the case in which they got arrested, and then a whole continuum of care. The point is that we have tried over and over and are still trying to use one tool. Could be law enforcement, could be treatment. This is all stuff related to the central nervous system, the human brain, the most complicated organ we know, and you cannot address it with one tool. We need an entire community care, continuum of care approach that I believe is what this current situation is really desperately calling us to do.
I want to get your take on this too, because you have lived in Mexico and covered this from that perspective as well as from the U.S. here. And you have said before that the two countries need to collaborate more. What does that mean, collaborate?
Oh, it means much more than what's happening now. Yes, there are all kinds of political reasons. I lived in Mexico as a reporter for 10 years, so I understand the history of suspicion and that exists between the two countries, but we need to get beyond that. This is not a national problem. It is a national problem, at the very least. And we are, hampered by all kinds of problems. I'm hopeful. I don't believe that the current president of Mexico has done much of anything to really address this problem. I'm hopeful that when he is replaced and leaves office and the new president takes over, that she will have a deeper view, a more nuanced view of what needs to happen with regard to collaboration, both in terms of law enforcement, border enforcement, a variety of things. They need to deal with issues of corruption. We need to deal with the guns that we allow, the assault weapons that we allow, and ammunition that we allow to be sold to almost everybody, apparently, under over 18. And many of those guns go south and arm the very cartels that are making, with impunity, the methamphetamine and the fentanyl that are killing Americans. I mean, my sense of the cost, the price of those weapons being sold so easily is a methamphetamine driving people to mental illness, and cheaper than ever on the streets of America. That's one measure of the price of those weapons that we sell so readily.
Coming to Arkansas in a couple of weeks, no doubt this is going to stir some debate and conversation, and that is hopeful and good. Tell me what you hope the outcome of your appearance here is.
Oh, I think you put hit the nail on the head. I'm looking forward to debate on this, discussion, understanding that I'm afraid that this topic has for too long been governed by kind of rigid doctrinaire opinions. No, just throw away the key. No, just don't do anything. We need treatment and nothing else. And it's that kind of thing. To me, I think this is a very complicated problem. However, it does offer the promise of doing something that we've really not done before, and that is a community-based solution to this. And I'm hopeful, maybe I'm naive, I don't know, but I'm hopeful that the more we discuss this and the more we try to devise community-wide solutions, that we will begin to repair a lot of the shredded sense of community that we once had and we do not have very often, and that will allow us to develop the alliances and the knowledge of each other and the connections and so on that will allow us to attack other problems as well. But whatever the case, with this problem, I believe that the only way forward is to talk about community-based, a continuum of care that begins early on and goes maybe several years after jail, involving all parts of the community, not just one or the other, and not saying, no, this can't be part because it was a problem years ago. We need that community-based approach to this.
That's award-winning author and journalist Sam Quinones. You can catch more of our conversation and get more details on that upcoming October 9th event at our website at talkbusiness.net. When we come back, Patrick Schick, CEO of Lexicon Inc., how is his steel and construction company bracing for the future? Stay with us.